I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Well, today we have a new July 4th. Just as I tried to articulate yesterday, every single July 4th from 1619 to the present is different. For Africans, the 19 scared ones that arrived in Jamestown, Virginia in 1619, or at Hampton, Virginia, those 19 scared Africans endured 156 July 4ths before Jefferson woke up with the idea that he would pin in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal. For Africans, it was just another day in slavery with Jefferson's hypocrisy. Yesterday, I walked through 2.5 centuries of July 4ths. But today, on the floor of the Congress of the United States on July 3rd, Hakeem Jeffries entered the history books opposing that big, ugly bill that transfers trillions of dollars to people who do not need them, cuts trillions of dollars in health care, needy assistance, nutrition programs, subsidies to poor and working class people in this nation on a scale that we've never seen before. And it was an African American who stood there not only in the tradition of Senator Cory Booker, but also in the tradition of Frederick Douglass in 1852. A turning point in the very definition of what it means to be an American. Where on July 4th, 1776, Thomas Jefferson wrote the magnificent words, Dr. King said, of the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal. But Dr. King, in 1963, reminded us that 100 years later, the Negro, women, farmers, the rural, the poor, regardless of their race, sex, or class, are still not free. And then on the Mall in 1963, 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, he had a dream that one day all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be able to sing a magnificent song. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. What we know about freedom is it comes with a cost. Freedom, we say more often than not, ain't free. My very special guest in this hour is Geoffrey Mount Varner, a medical doctor who has 20 years of experience in emergency medicine and is a leading authority in saving lives. He founded Lifeline Medical LLC in Bowie, Maryland in 2004, which consults with hospitals and health-related companies. Additionally, he still practices in the Washington metropolitan area. He serves as the attending physician for the ER at Southern Maryland Hospital and St. Agnes Hospital in Baltimore. He was an attending physician for the Department of Surgery at the University of Maryland Medical System. He serves as the chairman of emergency medicine for Howard University Hospital for 7 years until the mayor of Washington, D.C. recruited him to become the city's medical director and assistant fire chief for EMS. He is a Hampton graduate and earned his master's in public health from Harvard University School of Public Health. Dr. Varner is an active member with American College of Emergency Physicians, Urgent Care Association of America, and American Academy of Emergency Medicine. He's also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and as far as I can tell with this extraordinary resume, that might be the only mistake that he made. He should be a member of my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi. Dr. Varner is the author of Home Alive, 11 Must Steps to Surviving Encounters with the Police. Dr. Varner, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. And I do not mind being on the show of an Omega man.
It's an honor to have an alpha man here. Dr. Varner, when we come forward, we're going to discuss the ramifications, the consequences for your profession of what it means to be without Medicaid, to be without health care for millions of Americans who so desperately need it. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., You're listening to The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And just like that, Hakeem Jeffries steps into American and world history because of a correct interpretation of the significance of July 4th. Because, as Malcolm X said, the Negro was here before the Mayflower. We did not land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. And Martin Luther King Jr. said, we were here before Thomas Jefferson etched the magnificent words that all men are created equal on the Declaration of Independence. Dr. King said that we are here. And today we are here with Dr. Geoffrey Mount Varner, MD, MPH, FACEP, with over 20 years in emergency medicine and a leading authority on saving lives. In a real sense, Dr. Varner, in a real sense, on this July 4th, unlike any other July 4th in American history, and I say this with humility and profound respect for you and what you've accomplished. All of American history at this moment, for everything that we've ever been denied, is about you. It's about what you've been able to accomplish. It's about the America that you were born into, that our ancestors were not born into. From your perspective, what does the big, beautiful bill and the inability of the poor to be able to pay for their own health care with the subsidies of the government, what does that really mean for your profession?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me on your show. I am honored. And you've nailed it. The impact of this will be tremendous for all Americans. And we know that blacks will feel the brunt of this. Let me give you this number. 42%. 42% of Americans today have cancer and they don't even know it. 100% of us know someone who has cancer. What this bill does is that 42%, according to data, that 42% will likely jump into 55%. Here's why. That bill uniquely cuts funding for screening. And what we do know is that screening saves lives. Let me give you an example. If you have breast cancer, your screenings are going to indirectly be cut. And without the screenings, you don't pick up breast cancer. One more, cervical cancer. That's 96% curable, but you've got to screen so that you can detect it. When it's caught in stage 4, which means that you weren't screened early, it's about 25% curable. Hence, the death rates are going to go up. And in America, as you so highlighted, Mr. Jackson, we're all going to feel it. Even some of those people who say, hey, I have money.
I'm just
trickle down effect. Oh, there
no, I'm sorry. We had a moment technical break, but you're back. I'm sorry. Please finish your thought, Dr. Varner.
There will be a trickle down effect from all of us in the healthcare system. Why? Because it's going to be filled with people who are uninsured and are also now seeking health later, which means that they're going to be in the hospital longer, which tends to back up the entire system.
You know, when we begin to peel back some of the pieces of the onion associated with this bill, I mean, in this moment, it's just impossible to look at the consequences and the ramifications. And you've cited just a couple examples: the screening of breast cancer, the screening of cervical cancer. I mean, what does this bill also mean for those of us in our community who find ourselves in kidney dialysis a couple of times a week, who find ourselves in serious cardiac arrest, the #1 killer of so many people here in the United States, and let alone the surgical costs and preparation necessary to make corrective measures to save lives? Share with us, Doc, and please, please, please take your time.
Well, what that looks like and what that feels like is that when people are not on the Medicaid and Medicare rolls, they end up seeking health later. Now, if you read the bill, it will appear that, hey, I will not be dropped. Well, there's something that's very insidious about it, is that it's become so bureaucratic and so difficult that if you don't check the right box at the right angle, you may be dropped. In fact, you may not even qualify for it. Let me give you an example. In Texas, between 2004 and 2019, they increased the Medicaid requirements. What happened was over 24% of the children were dropped from Medicaid. And to this day, Texas has the highest number of uninsured children. Let me land my plane. This will impact every single one of us. It may not be tomorrow, but there will be a trickle-down effect. So if you're sitting out there and you think, my family, we're safe, no, it will impact us all directly.
Doc, you know, I am going to pivot for a second, if I can, to what this means for the institutions of health that find themselves in communities that are experiencing disparities: African Americans, Hispanics, white, rural. The institutions themselves cannot collect the reimbursement for providing the basic care that this bill essentially eliminates.
Mr. Jackson, you nailed it.
Please call me Jesse.
Let's just take it a step further. Many of these institutions, mainly the hospitals and the healthcare network, will close. Why? Because a lot of these institutions are funded indirectly through Medicaid. A lot of the people who these institutions served these institutions are compensated through Medicaid. The biggest cuts are in Medicaid. So what we're going to see is that many of these institutions in rural as well as urban areas are going to start to close. There are many areas of the country, especially rural areas, that do not even have a doctor for their towns of several thousand.
I can only imagine that when these institutions close, it is virtually impossible to reopen them. I mean, you don't ramp up a new hospital overnight. You don't get a MRI machine in a hospital overnight. And so the closing of a medical facility means the removal and probably the sale of significant surgical equipment, beds, rooms. And even if Democrats came back in 4 years, the idea of opening hospitals that has closed is probably fiscally a non-starter. And we're not just talking about public institutions. We're also talking about privately operated institutions that rely upon the subsidy associated with government health care.
You nailed it. I think where the population should recognize is that hospitals, while we love taking care of business, we love taking care of patients, as an institution, we are a business. And so we are compensated through Medicaid and Medicaid. When that money is not there, we close. And to your point, let's just say the Democrats come back in 4 years and they open up some of these places. Now they have to, the next thing that they have to face is recruiting doctors to come to those hospitals, because to get a qualified doctor usually takes several years to get them to have them come and to have them want to move their families. So this will have long-term implications, as you highlighted, but most importantly, there will be many institutions, not just the hospitals, but the healthcare networks, meaning the clinics, the urgent cares, those that take care of the least of us.
So we could end up with more doctors than we have locations for where they can serve people who are desperately in need. We could end up with literally Meharry, Morehouse, Drew, and other medical schools, Howard University, producing African-American doctors. And by the way, according to the Institute of Medicine's studies, African-American patients feel most comfortable, Hispanic patients feel most comfortable, female patients feel most comfortable seeing female doctors and doctors who look like them and culturally identify with them. These doctors increasingly, as well as the broader population, white American male doctors, increasingly will have nowhere to go to work.
Oh, you really nailed it. Let me add some flavor to that. There's a recent study that looked at child and maternity death rates. For women, for Black women, they're 2.5 times as high as our white sisters. However, the study showed that if the doctor was Black, that rate was cut in half. Simply by changing the color of the doctor, the child maternity death rate was cut in half. So to your point, this will have a devastating impact to all of us. And even my white peers, they will need places to practice, because a lot of these rural communities will not have healthcare institutions where they can go and work and be able to support their families.
Can we move beyond doctors to nurses, to nurse anesthesiologists, to other members of the healthcare professions whose lives are inalterably changed by the passage of the big ugly bill?
Yes. See, nurses are the backbone of medicine. In fact, we always say I would much rather have a seasoned nurse working with you than a newly trained doctor. But nurses are the backbone, and they will need to move their families so that they can seek employment as well. Because I have to remind the general public, while we love what we do, we also have families to take care of. And so this will impact where we work and how long we work at that place.
I've shared with some of our brothers and sisters, and I hate to paint the picture this way, but I'm going to. Al Jolson, back during the vaudevillian era, was a white man who painted himself black. He made the world's problems look black. And on those Friday afternoons, those Saturday evenings, or those Sunday matinees, he would come out on stage in blackface, and the audience would have a grand old time talking and laughing and hollering and shouting and throwing things at Al Jolson to entertain themselves. He became one of the most famous actors in the history of the industry. In fact, today in Los Angeles, the largest grave site at any cemetery that honors an actor or an actress is that of Al Jolson. It is amazing, I believe, at Hollywood's Forever Cemetery. Google it. Take a look at it. But the reality is Al Jolson, after painting the problem DEI, after painting the problem as Reagan did, welfare, after painting the problem over and over and over again as black and brown and minority, Al Jolson had to go backstage into the green room and wash his face. And there was standing not only a white man, but to use the parallel, there was standing a white farmer, a white woman, a brown woman, a rural worker, a rural and suburban American whose daughter needed critical care, but the critical care units were not within driving distance or within reach. But the problem was painted black, that somehow we're getting something for our tax dollars that we did not earn. But the reality is the people who are impacted by this devastating bill are beyond black, beyond white. It's all Americans. And at some point in time, we have to turn to the humanness of who we are.
Yes.
That we are people in need of care. Help me here, Doc. I don't want to preach today, but I got the sense you're very capable of doing that on a Sunday morning.
Well, no, you are nailing these points. Tears taste salty. Tears are not black or white. They taste salty. Tears of pain taste salty. And I say that to say, I think that the feeling is that blacks are going to bear the brunt of this. Unfortunately, it's going to be those in rural America, those in urban Americas. But it's the majority of those in rural America who are not black. And so that's why, as you just hinted, we are a family. We are a family of God. And so even if you don't see how it directly impacts you, you see how it impacts one of your fellow brothers and sisters of any color. And so I think that we are all called. We are called to be helpful. We are called to be kind. And what we need, and what is clear is that there will be many of us in need that we will all have to reach down and help out.
You know, I think the opportunity exists. We have just about 1 minute before we come forward. We have a hard break at the 30. And then, of course, we're coming back with Dr. Joff Varner to discuss more of these issues. But I do want to say this. I believe the opportunity, even after Hakeem Jeffries' speech, is for us to venture into unknown places. Mm-hmm. My father started in 1984 something called the Rainbow Coalition. I think in 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, and beyond, we're not just going to be able to look at people's color. We're going to have to be able to look at their pain. We're going to have to hit a level of spiritual integration where we identify with each other, not because we're black, white, or brown, but because we are suffering, that we live in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, and that we do not have to suffer. My dad said, however, that suffering breeds character, character breeds faith, and in the end, faith will not disappoint. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Dr. Joff Varner when we come forward after this break.
Got to tell the story.
Tell a story.
Give you all the glory.
Give you all the glory.
Sing praises to you only.
Oh yeah.
When no one seems to care.
When no one seems to care. Giving you the glory. Yes, I am.
Got to tell the story. Give you all the glory. Sing praises to you only. When no one seems to care. Got to tell the story. Give you all the glory. Sing praises to you only. When no one seems to care. Got to tell the story. Give you all the glory. Sing praises to you only. When no one seems to care. Got to tell the story. Give you all the glory. Sing praises to you only. When no one seems to care. Got to tell. Got to tell the story.
Tell a story.
Give you all the sing praises to you. I can face another day, 'cause you hear me when I pray. Don't have to hold back. You take me right where I'm at. There's no need to fear. You wiped away all my tears. No other love compares. 'Cause you're always there. Because of you, I can take a stand. Because of you, I am strong. Because of you, nothing holds me down. Because of you, I keep moving on. Everyone I see wonders what's come over me. They can see I'm happy. I tell them I have been set free, free from all the chains, chains on my heart and my brain. It feels so good to know that you love me so. Because of you, I can take a stand. Because of you, I am strong. Because of you, nothing holds me down. Because of you, You'll take me right where I'm at. There's no need to fear. You wiped away all my tears.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Dr. Geoffrey Mount Varner, MD, MPH, FACEP, who has over 20 years of experience in emergency medicine and is a leading authority on saving lives. Dr. Varner, before I get to the rest of your resume here, Doc, you got more alphabets after your name than you do letters in your own name. Just want to congratulate you for being the best and brightest that we've ever produced. He's the founder of Lifeline Medical LLC in Bowie, Maryland in 2004, which consults with hospitals and companies and health-related companies across the nation. Dr. Varner, let me ask you a question. I am particularly proud of Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries stood up in a very profound way on July 3rd. As close as he could get to getting national news and national attention, stories that will present themselves on July 4th, to argue the case for what's at stake. I feel in this moment that we can't afford as poor people to get sick in the first place. Talk to me, Doc.
I think you nailed it. He stood up for the sick. He stood up for the poor. He stood up for older people as well. Because everyone just needs to recognize that many of us are one diagnosis away from being in that quote poor category. One major diagnosis, one major car crash. And so while again, I want to talk to those people who think it's not them. It is you. It may not be you now, but it could be you one day. And what we do know, as we talked about at the start of the show, is that 42% of us have cancer right now. It just has not been diagnosed. And so we don't know where we're going to fall. So to that end, it is important for people like Hakeem Jeffries to stand up for all of us. Because as we all know, we go through different phases of our life. And some of those phases we cannot control, such as your health. And so making sure that we have a healthcare system as our backbone, it's almost as American as apple pie.
I think, wow. I don't think we can say it any better. And our white brothers and sisters, and I say this not to question their resilience, I don't think that their history has them traditionally feeling the pain that African Americans have developed a resilience towards when either the federal government or the state government withdraws benefits from the American people. I don't think many Americans, the veterans, the working poor, the agricultural workers, the agricultural and rural communities have experienced quite what we have experienced, and their resilience may not be the same. Your thought on their resilience?
Well, that's a very interesting point. And Mr. Jackson, you are wise. All we do is have to look back to the Depression. Who was killing themselves? Unfortunately, it was mainly white men because they were not used to sudden loss. Their resilience muscle had not been built. While this is going to be difficult for many Black Americans, for lack of a better word, we've become accustomed to the system not treating us in an equitable way. However, this bill is going to disenfranchise more white folks than history has ever seen. And so I have a public health concern. I have a fellow human being concern. Are my white brothers and sisters prepared emotionally and psychologically to deal with the type of consequences and therefore pain that will result if this passes?
Let me throw something. It passed today, and so it's heading to the president's desk. The president has set up a major signing ceremony on Independence Day tomorrow, July 4th, with fireworks to celebrate this this infamous moment in American history, literally changing the definition of what July 4th has meant since July 4th, 1776. The idea that all men, and yes, Elizabeth Cady Stanton made this friendly amendment, and women are created equal. But this July 4th, this bill exacerbates inequality amongst the American people within communities, within states, within counties, and within cities in ways that we cannot humanly and possibly imagine. And that's why I'm so grateful, Doc, that you are here on our program to help all Americans truly understand the depth of this problem.
Yeah, you nailed it. And truth be told, the depth of this problem will not be felt for several years. But again, we're all one accident. We're we're one looking down at our phone issue away from being part of that stream or that group of people who are going to feel the effect. And even if your healthcare is not impacted, the trickle down effect happens. Let me explain. No matter who you are in this country, no matter how successful you are, when the fell clutch of circumstance hits you, meaning when you need immediate medical care, you go to an ER. And an ER is the one place on earth. It's not first come, first serve. It is who is the sickest. In other words, you could have been waiting for 8 hours. It could be your turn to go in, and boom, a sicker person comes in, and therefore you have to wait longer. What's my point? Let me land my plane. When you and your family get sick, there will likely be a longer waiting period. And when there are longer waiting periods, literature, science has taught us the death rate and the morbidity go much higher. So unfortunately, we will feel this as an American family.
Joff, I know that your book, Training Your Mind for Split-Second Decisions, ER physician Geoffrey Mount Varner, MD, MPH, is available. It was a #1 bestseller. We have about 2 minutes before the break, and I know that I'm losing you to the emergency room and to the hospital at this break. So let me just ask you, would you please be willing to offer our listeners in this final minute and 30 seconds a word of hope?
The word of hope is that Americans have always survived. No matter who was in that office, we've always found a way of coming together. We have people like your father, we have people like you, we have people like Hakeem Jeffries, who have helped carry us further. And so while you may feel pain, as I mentioned, seasons, we all go through seasons. We're about to go through a painful season. But keep in mind, all seasons end. All seasons end. And so knowing that, just know that in a few years, a lot of this can be turned around. So I would highly encourage people, and this may sound too simple, make sure you get your screening exams now while you can. Make sure you get everything available to you now. Because right now, it sounds like we just need to survive for another 4 to 5 years. And there will be another administration who could reverse much of this. So do what you can now. Hold on, and things will usually work out.
Dr. Jeff Mount Varner, MD, is our very special guest. Dr. Varner, I hope you'll come back on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
And Jesse Jackson, I want to thank you for everything that you do, for exposing things, highlighting things, and clarifying things. So we want to thank you as well.
Oh, I appreciate you very much. Thank you, Dr. Varner. Look forward to having you back on our program anytime that you desire. Thank you, sir. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest has been Geoff Mount Varner. He is a medical doctor, an MD, FASCAP. I'm sure I'm getting some of these alphabets backwards. I'm lucky to have Junior after my name, but I am extraordinarily grateful for his contribution on July 3rd, 2025, where we are looking at Congress's lack of courage. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forth, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The World House with special guest Johnny Mack, Principal Managing Partner of the Johnny Mack Group, LLC, Founding Director, the World House Project, Inc., well-traveled throughout the Americas, Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, explicating Dr. King's call to restructure the social edifice and its triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism with a revolution of values that are effected through peaceable power. Johnny Mack is our co-host in the next hour on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And I just want to say something about KBLA Talk 1580. We are here to bear witness on July 3rd, 2025, and actually for eternal record, establish our understanding of what it meant for Hakeem Jeffries to deliver that 8-hour and 44-minute speech on the floor of the Congress at this hour. During the break, my mind hearkened back to first Reconstruction. The first African-American was elected to the Congress of the United States in 1870, Senator Hiram R. Revels of Mississippi. In 1871, Representative Benjamin S. Turner of Alabama. Also in 1871, Representative Carlos DeLarge of South Carolina. In 1871, Representative Josiah T. Walls of Florida. In 1871, Representative Jeffrey F. Long of Georgia. In 1870, Representative Joseph H. Rainey of South Carolina. And in 1871, Representative B. Elliott of South Carolina were elected to the Congress of the United States. And then with the Tilden Hayes Compromise, a compromise between the North and the South, the congressional level, the presidential level, in a presidential campaign and debate over the election results of the 1876 election, federal troops were withdrawn from the South. The Ku Klux Klan, in large measure, were founded, terrorizing African Americans from the polls. And by 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson was decided, creating a separate and unequal society. And by the turn of the century, the last African American served in Congress, and it began the period of Jim Crow. That's the history. That is where we could very well be. Not until Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954, Martin Luther King Jr. coming to the rescue, the death of Emmett Till, then Martin Luther King Jr. coming to the rescue of Rosa Parks, the Montgomery bus boycott, the modern civil rights movement that led to the 1964 Civil Rights Act, a large extension of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, the 1965 Voting Rights Act, the implementation of the 15th Amendment to the Constitution. Did African Americans return to the Congress of the United States in any meaningful measure? That's the legacy of John Lewis, the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., the legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer, the legacy of Shirley Chisholm and Cardis Collins, the legacy of Barbara Jordan, the legacy of the Negro in Congress was extended today with a floor speech delivered by Hakeem Jeffries. It was Frederick Douglass who said that power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where one of any class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, to rob, and degrade them, neither persons nor property will be safe. That was Frederick Douglass in the late 1800s. And that's where we find ourselves. What does it mean for millions of Americans to not have health care, to not have food, to come out of their homes every day looking for something to eat? For young children trying to find employment. For the least of these who my father called in 1984 or his 1988 speech, the derelicts of destitution. How do we turn to each other and not on each other in this environment? Some people in middle-class homes, those of us who have some measure of savings, are saying to ourselves, we can weather this storm. And others of us know the truth, that it's cold in Chicago, that people in Los Angeles like the idea of air conditioning. They do in Texas as well, and Arkansas and Arizona and other states where the heat determines whether people are outside or inside. And yet, in this environment and in this spirit, we're being asked to do something very different with our neighbors. To be more neighborly. To speak to people on the elevator. To speak to people in the line at Starbucks. To say something kind about somebody or to lend a helping hand to their neighbor. Nobody knows when the person standing in front of them or right next to them is going to pop, or whether or not they're having a bad day. When they can't feed their families, when their children go to school hungry, and when the government itself turns its back on the American people. I'm so tired of looking on Facebook and seeing Jeff Bezos' yacht and Mark Zuckerberg's yacht and how many things Floyd Mayweather owns. And I am so tired of the boisterous lifestyles of fancy cars and cars that only hold two people and really can't transport anybody, or some of the best dressed people on earth, when the reality of the new America is something Michael Harrington called the best dressed poverty. That we're going to see our neighbors wearing some of the finest clothes in the world, because the secondhand industry in the United States is different than the secondhand industry in any other country in the world. We look good in our poverty. But the reality is, behind our clothes, there is human suffering. How much can we endure? We'll talk about this in the next hour with Johnny Mack. Just no one has advanced Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision of a world house more than Johnny Mack, really under the mandate of Coretta Scott King. That's what she asked him to do. When we come forward, Johnny Mack is going to be our very special guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest in this hour is none other than the incomparable Johnny Mack. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hey, Jesse. Always good to be here. How are you?
Great, thank you. It is not my intention to get you in trouble with anyone with the introductions that I make of you, but I do want to share with everyone that I am so amazed and so proud of the work of Johnny Mack and the ongoing conversations that he has over Dr. King's ultimate vision, which includes but is not limited to the spiritual integration of human beings at a very different level than, how shall I say it, political positioning, photo ops, cameras, but the depth of true human compassion, empathy, understanding. And I'm so grateful to Johnny Mack because of all of the people that I've met all across the country and around the world, I can certainly speak for myself. The depth of my conversations with Johnny are just at that level. And Johnny, I want to begin today with a question in light of the passage of this legislation that transfers trillions of dollars of wealth and tax breaks to people who do not need them, should be paying more taxes. What are the consequences and the ramification of not having money for the maintenance of the house, for the electric bill of the world house, for the water that we need to cook in the world house, the basic things that help glue and bind our care for our neighbor together, their health care, their education, the environment. What are the consequences of the resources themselves not being available, particularly when Martin Luther King Jr. said very emphatically in the I Have a Dream speech, America has issued us, with an emphasis on us, all of us, a bad check. Keeps coming back marked insufficient funds.
Jesse, obviously any household that doesn't manage its resources well is subject to the consequences of those choices. And when you're talking about the world house, the only house that we have, not managing well its resources, dire consequences. And we are recognizing those consequences in so many different ways. In fact, they're too numerous to really articulate, even in our conversation, such as ours. So it invokes a great deal of conflict, of fear, and it doesn't meet the basic needs, not only of our humanity, the basic needs of the whole global ecosystem itself. And as King would argue, we're inextricably tied in a network of mutuality. Whatever affects you directly is going to affect me, and vice versa. And so while those who make decisions about a $3 trillion budget and feel that they are taking care of their own, and shame on the rest of us who can't manage to take care of ourselves, they might do well to heed the warnings of King, that we either live in this world house together as brothers and sisters, or we're going to perish as fools. And that's the consequence, ultimately, Jesse, of the choice that passing this budget really confronts us with.
I once read something that one of the idols of Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, Mohandas Gandhi, that we have enough to meet all of the people's need, but the world does not have enough resources to meet all of the people's greed.
That's right.
Johnny, we have 2 minutes before the break. Your thoughts on Gandhi?
Well, it couldn't be said better than that. Champions of nonviolence like King and Gandhi just had a way with words that few of us could ever imagine. And how simplistic was Gandhi's comment? And by the way, yes, we have enough resources, we have enough wealth. It's how we distribute that wealth, obviously, that's the problem. And that is the backbone. It is the gist of Gandhi's statement. Whoever is making those decisions on the distribution of wealth is determining this need-greed conundrum. And your question and point about passing the so-called great, beautiful, big, beautiful budget is telling. So, as King says, we've got some really difficult days ahead, which I think we probably should talk about on the other side of our break, Jesse.
I look forward to it. My father often says, as we prepare to go to break, if a woman has 2 pork chops and 4 children, she does not conclude that she has 2 excess children. She finds a way to make gravy. She finds a way to add some rice and some peas, and somehow magically 2 pork chops become 4. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, we'll have the wisdom of Dr. in my books, Dr. Johnny Mack. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Johnny Mack, Principal Managing Partner of the Johnny Mack Group, Founding Director of the World House Project Incorporated, well-traveled throughout Africa, Americas, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, explicating Dr. King's call for the social edifice and its triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism with a revolution of values that are effected through peaceable power. Johnny Mack, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse. Always good.
Johnny, let me ask you a question. One of the things that we talked about last week on your show here was this. The Dr. King wanted us to move beyond flicking a coin to a beggar. But in recognizing that a system that produces beggars, that produces people in need, needs to be restructured. Is that some form of democratic socialism? I'm thinking about a song that Prince sang at the opening of our show that, you know, the only word that's going to be left at the end of the day is our common unity. Communism may be the only word that's left when there's nothing left but for us to turn to each other and provide each other with care, with food, with love, with concern. And now we find ourselves in the very system that the elite have suggested that we should not achieve or should be desirous of. Johnny, work with us on restructuring the edifice in this hour.
Yeah, it is the seminal question, I think, of the century, quite frankly. How do we restructure the edifice, and do we truly understand what the edifice is? You know, we have the social edifice that we have doesn't happen as a natural consequence. It happens by the choices that we make. And the question is, who's making those choices, and upon what authority are such choices made? You know, I could talk the rest of the afternoon on this one, Jesse, but let me try to quickly say this on that notion of authority, and because this is about answering your question, how to change the edifice, and changing it to what? You know, authority is based upon three fundamental things. Authority has a source, authority has a seat, and authority has a substance. So there's the substance of
a source, a seat, and the substance.
That's absolutely right. So by whose authority is the social edifice organized? What is its source? What is its seat? And what is its substance? You know, the source of authority is where that power comes. The seat is where it resides. And the substance is the content of the authority itself. So in the United States of America, the seat of authority ultimately is Washington, D.C. And some would argue, certainly our current president argues, that the seat of authority is the presidency itself and himself. Indeed. If that's true, what is the source of that authority? What gives the presidency, what gives an individual that authority? What is its source? And then what is the substance of that authority? What authority has been given to do what? The argument here is that the source, seat, and substance of authority ultimately in a democratic society resides with the people. The people are the source. They determine the substance and they determine the seat. And if the people give authority to the seat called the presidency, or they seat it in the Congress, or Jesse, they seat it in the Constitution, if you're following me, and how we use that authority becomes paramount. And as it turns out today, somehow the people have to understand that the source, seat, and substance of authority is their responsibility. how citizens organize themselves to exercise that authority is what we lack greatly. And it's what King was calling for when he talked about a revolution of values. Now, there's a lot to talk about there, but back to you, Jesse.
Let's unpack some of the revolution of values. But at the granular level, I mean, I'm not suggesting that every American needs a seminary education, not as if a seminary education is going to help them understand the granular nature of values. My grandmama Matilda Burns, didn't have an 8th grade education, but you talking about a woman of values. My father's mother was just 16 years older than him when he was born. She was a teenage mother, but I mean, she can count her life by the number of days she attended church because she prided herself in never missing a Sunday service, including dragging her children. Like Stevie Wonder said, Mama used to make us go to Sunday school. We trade our tithes for candy, acting like it's cool, right? The value isn't necessarily an academic or a collegiate or even a high school based education. It is, well, as you say, Johnny, it's at some kind of source. Help us arrive at a common source of those values.
Well, values are a relative thing. Whose values and what values? There's an author, I just can't pull his name at the moment, but he argues that there is no common purpose algorithm in determining values. And what he means by that is, globally, there is no fundamental set, no fundamental source of values that we humanity can turn to. So what then does one do? I think King argues in his 1962 treatise on the ethical demands of integration, where he suggests that the fundamental values that all humanity might embrace are very simple. And they are 3. They are dignity, liberty, and community. Now, he doesn't use those terms, Jesse, directly. I've re-articulated them for our audience in this century. Remember, King is writing in the mid-20th century. But he basically is arguing that few would argue against the idea that all humanity has equal dignity and worth, irrespective of any other human characteristic that we assign to each other, whether it's race or gender or whatever terms and names we give each other. Ultimately, we all share some common sense of dignity and worth. And then the second is liberty. With that dignity, each of us ought to have an equal liberty to exercise our dignity and worth, to realize our full potential. And so societies should be organized in ways that provide opportunities for me to realize my full dignity and worth, and that's called liberty. The third value is community. If I am by myself and it's just me, then I am a community of one, and I need not be concerned about any other because there is no other, right? But the moment, Jesse, you come into my presence, suddenly we are in a position of community. And the question is, what do we do with it? My dignity and liberty, if it is to be recognized by you, is subject to your dignity and liberty. I must recognize it. I must give you the same dignity and liberty and freedom that I ask you to give of me. And that's what we call community, living together in the world house.
It seems to me, Johnny, that I might, in that moment where we come together in the same room for the first time in the world house, I may I may, how shall I say, subjugate my own liberty and subjugate my own dignity to welcome your liberty and dignity into my space. And in that context, of course, we establish boundaries with mutual recognition of ourselves as selves and as people. And then we look for common ground in that context, in the context of boundaries. This isn't about taking advantage, but it does mean that I don't arrogantly impose my liberty or my freedom or take advantage of someone, because a battle of your liberty, your freedom, my freedom meeting at the first time can also be a contest. And to disarm the idea that we are battling, I am prepared, and maybe that's just my Christian ethos, to deny myself, to welcome yourself, to understand yourself, to hear yourself, meaning you, to listen to you, to understand you, to empathize with you, and then share, if you will, my story and identify with your story in a way that we find a commonality of space. And by that, when I say that, and I'm not trying to complicate it for the listener, but if you drew two circles, and in this certain area where both circles interact or interspace, there's a gray area. And in that gray area exists community. But in that non-gray area exists my sense of individualism and my sense of freedom. Does that make sense?
It makes all the sense in the world. I guess the scientists would call that a Venn diagram, and the nexus of those two circles where they come together is, you know, what you're calling our space in community. And the beauty of your illustration, Jesse, is we don't have to lose our identity in order to have common unity or community. So, because again, there is that space outside of the nexus where we, again, exercise our freedom and our liberty and our dignity and worth. Along with dignity and liberty and community is the idea that true liberty brings responsibility. That you can't truly be all of you unless I am in a position to be all of me. And in fact, we add real value to our common humanity because of our interplay as human beings. And so, you know, the idea of contest, you know, there are many people who argue that contest, or I'll use the word here, conflict, is a negative thing. But I would argue that conflict is neither good nor bad. Conflict is neutral. What determines whether conflict will be a good thing or a bad thing, will be violent or non-violent, once again, is the decisions that we make. So we can determine to take that conflict and make it a very positive experience in our human lives, working through it with non-violent values and principles. Or we can choose otherwise, using violent means.
And obviously, violent means, by definition, means a co-annihilation, that in a real sense, I can't be all that I can be, and you cannot be all that you can be if we arrive at a point of non-existence for either of us. That somehow my enemy has to become my frenemy, that even with someone that I have fundamental disagreements with, there is this nexus between my circle and their circle in this space. Is humanity. And watch this now. The circles can be as far apart as the smallest nexus that creates that space, but the circles can also be as close together as possible, where the community itself between two individuals occupies more common space than the sense of individualism by the gray area, by the area that is not colored in the gray. In other words, we can get closer.
Yes.
On the other hand, Dr. King says that at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, at the most sacred moment of the Christian experience, there's a circle over here and there's a circle over here. Everybody's talking about Jesus. Everybody's talking about heaven, but not everybody's going there. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. My very special guest is Johnny Mack. And when we come forward, more with the great Johnny Mack on the World House. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest, our co-host in this hour, is Jay, principal and managing partner of the Johnny Mack Group, founding director, the World House Project. Johnny Mack, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Johnny, let me pry a little deeper. Assuming that the person in the seat has the spirit energy that Dr. King was articulating, assuming that the invitation, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, is a doormat at the front door of the World House, welcoming the teeming shores and the wretched refuse of humanity into the American experiment. And now the doormat says no longer welcomed. Don't ring this doorbell. I got a shotgun. We're going to send you back home just as soon as you come here. And we may send some of y'all to a faraway place who've been here for a long time under the 14th Amendment as well. It increasingly seems that the World House experiment is only, or was only, in Dr. King's mind and vision, possible in the American experiment. But the American experiment itself now is a very different experiment than the one he recognized and envisioned.
Well, I do think, Jesse, that when you think about King's sermon at the Riverside Church exactly a year before his assassination, where he talks about the Vietnam War and a time to break silence, he recognizes how the World House really is just that. It's not just an American issue. It's not, that is, United States of America issue. It is indeed a global issue. It's more than a figure of speech. For King, I think it was reality. And if we didn't recognize that, if we didn't live as if the world is a house, where as many rooms as we need to organize this house, so be it, so long as we are acting justly and creating peace in our actions, then we simply cannot survive as humanity. So I think that the King was fully aware that irrespective of race or creed or color or orientation or any other, again, human characteristic, we are stuck here as a humanity in this global World House.
Given the nature of America's global economic influence in the 60s, the late 50s, the role of our economic system in Vietnam, in sub-Saharan Africa, in the Caribbean, in South America. Recently, the spirit energy of this house, given its economic hegemony, decided that the pennies that we spend on a dollar to feed the hungry in the broader World House. Just yesterday, we, if you will, watched the closing and the final employees of the United States Agency for International Development close down the agency itself,
Mhm.
the so-called soft power
Mhm.
that Dr. King would argue, I believe, had a moral obligation given our extraordinary wealth to maintain. It is the global commitment of the United States to such a venture. But as you expand that vision beyond my initial limited thinking about the lack of America's willingness to welcome people on our own teeming shores, it seems to me that we're also turning our back across the picket fence,
Mm.
across turning our back on the street and the neighbor directly in front of us, meaning crossing an ocean,
Mm.
recognize that they too have needs.
Mm.
I think Americans at this hour are so concerned about their own financial positions, their own economic security, that they cannot see Africa. They cannot see South America. They cannot see the Caribbean. They cannot see the least of these in the broader world house. In your opinion, how would Dr. King help move our vision to something broader than our own domestic sense of nationalism and patriotism?
Well, the answer to that question is very easy. It is the way he did it when he was with us. And that is, there are a few voices more important than Martin Luther King Jr.'s in the history of this nation and arguably of this world. The moral authority of that voice echoes throughout the halls of history, all the way up to this time. And I would argue, if the world lasts long enough, Jesse, long after you and I are gone. One need only read his writings, and one does not have to read for very long or search very far to hear and or to see that message, the prescriptions that King, I think, left for us on how we might not just love one another. And while King was, of course, a man of faith, a devout Christian, a man of the cloth of clergy, he also understood that not everyone thought the way he thought about their religious experiences. They had different orientations. Not everyone carried a religious orientation at all. And so he made room for everyone in his prescriptions on how we might learn to live together. And so I think he would continue to admonish us to study nonviolence, something that we have not done well, to really understand what nonviolence is. I could spend the rest of this conversation in the next several weeks of our talks, Jesse, just on that point. Too many of us have no clue what nonviolence is. We think it's not acting violently in terms of direct physical harm. It is so much more than that, if it is that. And so I think carefully reading King, studying his messages, we can find many answers to the questions that you're asking and the specific question about what he would do today.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Johnny Mack. Johnny has been walking us through a deliberative, thoughtful, and reflective understanding beyond the speeches of Dr. King's work, but at a pace that allows us to reflect upon the decisions that we make in our public lives, our private lives. And Johnny, I can't wait to explore the depth of nonviolence to which you are articulating.
Mm.
And I know we're going to do it over a number of weeks.
Yes.
But in a real sense, the restoration of the earth itself, the planting of a tree, the idea that Howard Thurman would find himself talking to trees was part of that practice. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, you're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, The World House with Johnny Mack.
I can face another day, 'cause you hear me when I pray. Don't have to hold back. You take me right where I'm at. There's no need to fear. You wiped away all my tears. No other love compares. 'Cause you're always there. Because of you, I can take a stand. Because of you, I am strong. Because of you, nothing holds me down. Because of you, I keep moving on. Everyone I see wonders what's come over me. They can see I'm happy. I tell them I have been set free, free from all the chains, chains on my heart and my brain. It feels so good to know that you love me so. Because of you, I can take a stand. Because of you, I am strong. Because of you, nothing holds me down. Because of you, I keep moving on. Another day, 'cause you hear me when I pray. Don't have to hold back. You take me right where I'm at. There's no need to fear. You wiped away all my tears. No other love compares. 'Cause you're always there. Because of you, I take a stand. Nothing's gonna hold me down. You,
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Johnny Mack is our very special guest in this hour. Johnny Mack's work and research interests include peace, conflict, and social change and movements. His seminal work, After Confrontation, Then What?, seeks to re-articulate nonviolence beyond the traditional idea of direct resistance to a meta-logic that includes direct, structural, and cultural nonviolence, each having its own form of social action. His professional work focuses on peace and conflict resolution using this meta-logic of nonviolence. In it, he seeks to foster the role of civil society in strengthening the social fabric through community building and development, which includes political, social, economic, and cultural strategies. That is, his work seeks to realize Dr. King's vision by building communities without boundaries. Johnny Mack, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, sir.
In this, our final segment, it seems that just being kind to someone is part of the meta logic. And I'm sure that there are so many different variations within which these actions matter. But a kind word to the stranger on the Jericho road, let alone lifting them up, bandaging them up, taking them to a local hospital, showing a willingness to pay the bill, which is an extension of the Samaritan story that Dr. King first brought to our attention in such a profound way, that this meta logic extends beyond, again, the mere compassion of flicking a coin to a beggar, but understanding the social, the economic, the political, and all of the conditions that create a society of beggars, and that we, in each our own individual ways, have to wrestle with our response to how we deal with humanity in light of that recognition.
You know, Jesse, King understood something that, again, few of us do, and it's not always immediately evident. And that is that nonviolence, like violence, has different forms. And in fact, few people or many people don't realize the many forms of violence. They may be summarized as Johan Galtung did, who just died, I guess, a year or so ago, a brilliant sociologist, who talked about the direct, structural, and cultural forms of violence. And again, we talk about direct physical violence, that is physical hurt and harm, and then our thinking tends to stop there. But there's such a thing as, of course, institutional, organizational violence. And there's also, Jesse, a certain notion of cultural violence. And this is where Galtung, I think, was most brilliant in his understanding of violence and explicating its impact in the human experience. Cultural violence justifies direct and structural violence. Our cultural mores and norms legitimize a certain behavior that makes poverty okay, that makes winners and losers the norm, that allows 1% of 1% to own 75 to 80% of the resources on the globe, while too many, even half of the 9 billion people on the earth, live on less than $1 a day in US terms. There are cultural mores and norms that make that all right and allow us to live our quotidian day in and day out lives with giving no concern or regard to these kinds of injustices and forms of violence.
My final question, Johnny. So how should Americans interpret and react to the 4th of July this year, what should we be doing at our gatherings?
Wow, I'm reminded of Frederick Douglass when you asked that question. But what we should be doing, in my view, Jesse, is really understanding what we have done, what we are doing, as we live in this world house, as we organize the systems, the organizations, the institutions, the processes, the mores and norms that mediate our action and interaction, not only between each other, but with ourselves and the system itself. In other words, how do we restructure the edifice? That's the question, I think, that we should be asking ourselves every 4th of July. Are we living up to the principles of our creed, as King said in his I Have a Dream speech? Are we holding ourselves accountable to the promissory note? Or are we ourselves guilty of its bankruptcy? What must we do to ensure that the truths that are self-evident remain that of life, liberty, and happiness in our pursuit of being fully human?
Johnny, thank you for spending this July 3rd with us. And
Jesse,
I can't wait to see. Wait until next week to see you again.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And if you want to pick up the conversation about these forms of nonviolence, I'd welcome that. Just let me know in advance so I'm prepared.
I promise that we will. Thank you, Johnny Mack, for joining us.
All right, Jesse, be well.
We've been listening to one of the great minds of our time, Johnny Mack, reflect upon not only what the meaning of July 4th is, but also the context within which we engage in our daily actions. It is a comprehensive system, deeply entrenched in a profound sense of our own spirituality and faith, and it is equally as reflective. It isn't just action, it is thought and action. For the ends for which we live, Dr. King said, are pre-existent in the means. Christianity is a very difficult religion. It is not an easy one. We have to give it some thought. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, it will be the 4th of July. The best of Jesse Jackson Jr., the best of KBLA Talk 1580, all day long. Until then, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. I'll see you next week.